Welcome to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. There are no traffic jams along the Extra Mile when you're studying for your bar exam. And now, your host, Jackson Mummy, owner of the Celebration Bar Review.
Well, hey everybody, welcome to episode 124 of the Extra Mile podcast. This is Jackson Mummy. Glad to have you with us today. Thanks so much for spending time with us and coming to find out more about the bar exam and how to prepare for it. Today's episode, I think you're going to enjoy. It's an interview with a young man who passed the New York bar exam in July 2016. And that's great, and it's very exciting. He passed on his first try. But what really makes this story interesting is that he did his entire study with us on a smartphone. You might be familiar if you're of a certain age, or maybe even currently now, with the show MacGyver. And in MacGyver, the guy takes all of these common household items and he MacGyvers them into making amazing things to get out of problems and jams and so on. And when I think about Lewis, what he did was really to MacGyver his studies. And often when I'm talking in these interviews, I'm talking about and with people who've put in this extraordinary effort and thrown all these resources at it. But sometimes I think it's useful to step back a little bit and see that it is possible to pass the bar exam really with a more minimalist approach if that suits your style better. And today's interview is a great example of that. So I hope you'll stick around for that particular interview. Now, as we're recording and releasing this episode, we're getting close to the holiday period, and many of you are just finishing up your law school finals, or maybe you're starting your time when you're thinking about preparing for the bar. And certainly if you're looking at the February or July 2017 exam, I want to invite you to join me on Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, that's 12 noon Pacific time, for a free webinar, 90-minute webinar called How to Make the Next Bar Exam Your Last Bar Exam. We're going to look at the 4 steps that's necessary for you to pass the bar. And it's filled with actionable advice and tips and techniques. And we've had literally hundreds and hundreds of people go through this webinar with great success. And so we invite you to join us as well. There's no cost at all, but you do need to reserve your seat. You can do that one of 2 ways. You can go to our website at celebrationbarreview.com, click on the button that you see there, and you'll be all signed up. Or you can text message us the phrase "Next Bar Exam" to the number 33444. So if you text the phrase "Next Bar Exam" to 33444, we'll get you registered via text message. Now, if Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern doesn't work for your schedule, or you don't want to wait that long, you can always set up an on-demand viewing of the webinar. And to do that, just go again to our homepage at celebrationbarreview.com. Scroll down the page just a little bit and you'll see the button to select the on-demand webinar, and you can set up your own viewing for today. And we encourage you to do that. It's the same content. But of course, the magic always happens live. So hope you'll join me one way or the other for this great set of information and to find out what you have to do in order to pass the bar. Well, I want to jump into today's interview. I think you're going to really enjoy it. It's a fun one, and it's really with our very own MacGyver, Luis Torres. Well, hey everybody, welcome back to Hanging Out with Successful Bar Exam Takers. This is episode 33, and today's going to be kind of a fun discussion, I think, because I've got a student who really didn't do things the normal way, the easy way necessarily, but he was successful. And so I'm so glad to welcome a passing New York UBE bar taker from July 2016, Luis Torres. Hi, Luis.
Hi, Jackson.
How are you this morning?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good.
That's
so glad.
Accurate to what I did.
Yeah. I'm glad to have you with us because your story, when I tell people stories, and we do this, a lot of times I hear people who put all the bells and whistles in, did everything to the nth degree. And then sometimes I've got people who kind of MacGyver it. They kind of figure out how to make everything work. And you're kind of one of those MacGyver guys. And so I'm excited to have you tell your story. But let's just start with how kind of your background and how you ended up being in a position to sit for the New York bar back in July.
Okay. Like just from college and just
sure. Wherever you want to pick it up, go.
All right. So I was a history major in college, and took a year off after college and just kind of like decided what I wanted to do. And, I decided I want to go to law school, and so I went to Vermont Law School. It's actually the only law school in Vermont, and it's not the University of Vermont. Some people get confused about it. A little interesting tidbit about me. And so I decided, midway through, I wanted to do criminal defense and not focus on environmental law, which is basically the focus of Vermont Law School. So after that, I moved to Maryland. I worked for the public defender for a little while.
So let me just interrupt for a second. So you took the Maryland bar and you passed, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, great. And what year was that?
That was 2012.
Okay. So now you're in Maryland. You're working for the public defender.
Correct. And so I was volunteering. I did a bunch of trials, which is pretty exciting. But I didn't ultimately find any like paying work. The problem in criminal defense is a lot of your clients can't pay you. So, I was trying to do solo work, and that didn't really work out. So I moved to New York, and I've been doing document review for a little over a year. It's probably going into my second year. And obviously, I don't want to do it forever, but to have like a real job, obviously, I need to pass the bar. So that's when I decided I wanted to do that in New York.
Okay. So this was your first try on the New York bar, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And how did you find Celebration Bar Review?
I did a Google search. I mean, it's not rocket science. I just, I did a search, and I looked at the prices and what people are offering. And also, at that point, I was looking for something I could do primarily, from my phone. That's the MacGyver part of it. And Celebration Bar Review was one of the courses where you could do a lot of it on an Android. So, that combined with, the price, I think, I felt that was right for me.
Right. So you're doing document review, and you're studying for the bar, and you got a fairly late start into your studies, didn't you?
Yeah, but I should note, by the time I started studying, I wasn't working anymore.
Okay, so you're studying full-time at that point. And
yeah.
How long did you actually study for the bar? How many months?
I'd say I'll be generous, liberal, and give myself a month and a half.
Okay, so not very long.
Not very long.
Yeah. And one of the things that makes you so unusual in my experience is that we do talk about the fact that you can access all the material using your tablet or your phone or your computer, and you did it all from your phone, right?
Almost all of it.
Yeah.
Towards the end, when I wanted to do the practice tests, I did that on my aunt's computer.
Okay. So
I went to her house.
Yeah, so you accessed the lectures and the books and most of the questions until you got into the
all that on my phone.
Yeah. And how did that work for you?
It was a little frustrating at first, but once I got used to it, it was okay.
Yeah. And
you have to know how to access it.
Yeah, so it's a little trickier on a phone for sure. What were you, and we give you a study guide, a list of assignments to follow, but you'd taken the bar before, so how did you focus your studying in that 6-week period or so? What were your priorities?
Well, this is going back to, starting a little later, and we had that talk, the first talk, and you said, given where my strengths were, I should probably focus on the essays, because I felt like I had a sort of leg up on the MBE.
Yeah,
so I did all.
Why did you feel that way? Let's go back for just a minute to help people understand. Why did you feel like you were strong in the multi-state?
Well, when I took the Maryland bar, I got a pretty good score on it.
Okay.
And also just, with the practice questions, I felt like I generally did pretty well.
Okay. All right.
So, I got at least, I'd say 60% right.
Okay. Which is a good score for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So you turned your focus in the uniform bar exam. For people that don't know, it's made up of 6 30-minute essays and 2 separate 90-minute performance tests. So you put your attention on the writing side and primarily on the essays, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. And how did you prepare for those essays then during that period?
So I sort of, you guys had a primer on essay writing techniques. So I kind of reviewed that for a little while, and then I just kind of went into it and started writing, and made sure to time myself. I did about 3 or 4 essays per day, and I would go back and review the answers and just sort of try to match them up to what I had written.
And you found that you were able to write an answer in 30 minutes?
Not at first.
Right, right.
But, over time, I was able to sort of manage my time a little better.
Yeah. So the practice makes a difference, right? I mean, being able to go in and just keep refining and doing what you're doing and narrowing it down, getting more specific and more functional, right?
Yeah, I mean, practice makes perfect, right?
Yeah, well, it's supposed to. Okay.
Or it's supposed to perfect as possible.
Yeah, there you go. What about the performance test? Did you do anything special to prepare for those?
No,
No.
I hardly did anything for the performance.
Okay. So you just took your existing experience and you knew what a performance test was. We talked about it in the course.
Yeah. I mean, I'd done it for the Maryland Bar already. And I mean, the MPT, if people don't know, I mean, they give you the materials in the test itself. So there's not too much preparation. It's more like, the techniques for the essay writing. I mean, it's not going to differ too much from writing the state essays.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I felt. So I didn't do too much of that.
Okay. So by taking your strengths, the multi-state, and knowing that you knew the MPT, you were able then to spend your time, given a limited amount of time. You can't do everything. And I think that's one of the mistakes people make, is if they find themselves in that spot, they think, oh my God, I got to do everything. But you really focused your attention down. Were there particular subjects that you were more concerned about in terms of the essays than others?
Yes. Property is my worst subject. I think it's probably everyone's worst subject unless they practice in it. So
yeah.
I had terrible results in property. So I did a lot of property essays.
Okay. All right. And I think that's important too, is to recognize that if there's something you don't feel as comfortable with, you spend more time there. So the point I really want to make is that I think what you were doing, Lewis, that a lot of bar takers forget about is you were using common sense. You were simply saying, here are the resources I've got. Here's the time I've got. I'm going to use my time and resources in the way that's most effective for me. And so as you're preparing and getting ready, what's kind of your mindset as you're going to the bar exam now? You took it at the Javits Center?
I took it at the Javits Center.
Yeah, a bazillion people. Crazy location.
Yeah. Hundreds, maybe thousands.
I think thousands, actually, yeah. So what's your mindset as you're going into the exam?
The day of?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I sort of felt ready, but you can never feel ready enough, And so I was freaking out a little bit, but I was also just kind of anxious to get it over with, to be honest. And after that first day, I felt a little better.
Yeah. First day was the written portion, so you get that out of the way. And then you get to the multi-state on the second day. Now, when you took the bar in Maryland, civil procedure was not one of the 7 topics, right? It was not one of the topics. Is that right? Or did you just...
not on MBE, no.
Yeah, okay.
Part of the essays.
Okay. So had you spent any extra time working on civil procedure to get ready for it here?
A little bit, yeah, because, last time I studied it was in law school, so I'm a little rusty.
Okay, all right. So what was your feeling in the exam itself? I mean, how did you feel about those 2 days?
I don't feel, even with the preparation, I don't feel like I managed my time right. I think I said in my reply, there was one essay I barely even did. Mm-hmm. So going out, I actually felt like I might have failed. But I guess, I don't know, like the other essays I wrote were good enough, and I guess that made up for it. But I spent a lot of time writing. There was an evidence essay. Mm-hmm. I spent, I think, way too much time writing that essay. Like 6 pages in the book. I filled up all 6 pages.
So now you hand wrote your essays.
I hand wrote.
Yeah, and that's a challenging thing to do, because the examiners generally see mostly typewritten essays. So handwriting is, again, it's kind of a MacGyver sort of thing. Here's what I've got. Here's the resources. Did you do anything in terms of your handwriting to try and make sure that it would be more readable?
I mean, I guess I could say I wrote a little slower and maybe a little more deliberately.
So you felt pretty good coming out of the MBE at that point, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're waiting for results, and the waiting long time. What'd you do during that time frame?
Yeah, it's 4 months that you have to wait. So my dad has a business, so I worked part-time for him. I did, a little of the document review that I was talking about, and not too much else. I mean, there's not much else you can do to sort of ease your mind about, I mean, the test you handed in is the test you handed in. You can't change it. and you can't, call them and ask them when it's coming out or anything like that. So,
Right.
there's not much that I felt like I could do.
Right. So then the results come out without notice. I mean, just one night on your phone, in your case, right? You get the
Yeah.
email saying, "Here's the results." What was that like?
Felt great.
Yeah. I mean, you see
Like
your
you
number.
weight off your shoulders. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, what advice would you give people who are getting ready to sit for the bar exam at this point?
Well, you want to start earlier than I did. You probably want to give yourself like a good 2 months. And you're going to know probably, a little from law school and just, going through the questions, like what are your weak subjects, what are your strong subjects, and probably spend more time on the weak subjects and not as much time on the strong ones. I mean, like I know a lot of criminal law, so I spent almost no time studying criminal law. I mean, I just didn't feel like there was a point. Property contracts, those are my weaker ones, so I spent a lot of time doing those. I know I said I spent a lot of time in essays, but so my weak subjects, property contracts, I did a lot of practice questions too. And then towards the end, I left a few days, maybe like 4 days, to do some practice tests from the past exams, and I got pretty good results, so I felt good going in at the MBE. But and also just don't freak out too much. Like there's a saying that, like, I guess people your generation probably came up with. I don't know if it is, but it's the serenity prayer. So control certain things and you can't control some other things.
Right.
And so you just got to focus on what you can control and just try not to think about everything that you can't.
Yeah, I mean, I would say to use your generation's phrasing, you're a pretty chill guy. So, you stayed pretty calm even when things looked pretty bleak for you. You just kind of pushed forward. And one of the reasons I really wanted to have you on the show was that I think sometimes people think if they can't do everything perfectly, if they can't use every resource, then somehow they aren't going to be successful. And you really made it all work. I mean, you took a cell phone and you studied from a cell phone. That's pretty amazing, really, when you think about it. I mean, when we started the Bar Review 25 years ago, that was not something we envisioned, trust me. So, and it's not the norm, but it can be done. And, the pass rate in New York was not a great pass rate overall, so you beat the odds to go in there and pass. And it's really a great accomplishment. I'm very proud of you. I'm very excited for you. So what do you think the future holds now that you've got this hurdle out of the way?
Well, for people to take the New York DBE, there's also a New York law course that you have to take.
Right.
And there's a deadline for that. So I almost missed it. So you gotta make sure that you get that. And, look at the webpage they give you. And then so after I finish that and I get sworn in, I'm going to probably start trying to do some criminal defense here, maybe do some other consumer law issues, maybe immigration as well.
That's great.
Just focus on trying to help people out that are in tough spots.
That'd be great. And, the bar needs people doing that so badly. So I'm really excited that you're going to be a member of the New York Bar. And that New York law exam you're talking about is really sort of a pro forma, it's an open book.
It really is.
It's an open book at-home test. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that.
It takes forever.
Yeah. So there you go. But that's exciting. And I really wish you well. And I'm excited for you, pleased for you. And I appreciate you sharing your story with our audience today, because I think a lot of times people get so overwhelmed and so discouraged, and sometimes it's nice to see that you can just kind of boil this down to the simplest components, do those steps, and you did, and you followed what we were asking you to do, and then get the result. And that's a nice outcome. It's better than nice. It's a great outcome. So thanks so much. Any other thoughts that you want to share with our audience before we wrap up today?
Well, so I guess the theme of this was that, even given less preparation than optimal, you can do it, but at the same time, you want to give yourself an optimal chance to pass. So definitely, I mean, I said before, give yourself 2 months. Also, probably, I'd say 6 hours a day is probably the max that you can retain. I think someone said 8 hours. I don't feel like that's true. If you have 8 hours studying a day, you're just going to forget a lot of it. Yeah. So I would say cap your studying at 6 hours a day.
Yeah, I would concur. I think that's exactly right. And I think you made the most efficient use of the time you could. and really, we would say it's really a question of efficiency. If you did anything over the passing number, you did too much. So, I think when you get that result, you can go, yeah, okay. That took the least amount of pain out of my life that we could possibly do, and so that's a good thing. So great to see you, great to have you with us. Proud of your accomplishment, and just thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Jack.
And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. As always, we'll be back shortly with the next in our series, and just look forward to sharing more of these great stories with you on Hanging Out with Successful Bar Exam Takers. Bye-bye for now. Well, that's our episode for today. Thanks so much for joining me and for being part of the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. Now, if you'd like to catch up on prior episodes or check out the show notes, you can do that by going to our webpage at celebrationbarreview.com. Click on the link at the top of the page for podcasts, and there you'll find all of our previous episodes as well as the show notes. You can also subscribe to the podcast from that site, or you can go to iTunes and subscribe there. Just type in the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers, and you can subscribe and be part of the podcast series. And we would love to have you do that. While you're on the iTunes site, we would also really appreciate you giving us a quick, honest rating and review. That feedback is really useful to me as I prepare these episodes. It only takes about 30 seconds, so I hope you'll do that. Just type in the name of the podcast and give us your rating and review. Again, if you've got any questions or you'd like to know anything else about Celebration Bar Review or the courses that we offer, visit our website, or I invite you to contact us. My email is jackson@celebrationbarreview.com, and I look forward to hearing from you and to seeing you along the extra mile very shortly. See you on the pass list. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers at www.celebrationbarreview.com.